Okay, but now we have our layout space that is outside our printable area, right? Or not printable area. Our printable area does not contain what we want to print. Okay, so viewports acts just like any other object. So we could select it and move it, and it can move into that space. Okay. Other than that, we could go into layout. So if we go into the layout tab, we can create new layout. So this one is a rectangular one. I'll put it outside my printable area, and there's that same thing. Basically, the new layout, whenever you create it, it's going to get everything that's in the model space into that little viewport window. Okay. You can also, whoops, wrong one. You could also have options to create like polygonal layout. So if you want to make some weird shape, it will do so. That comes in handy if like you have like an L-shaped building and you only want to show that part of the building. You could kind of manipulate this thing so that that's what it'll only show. Okay. So either way, you're going to get that new, this new viewport into that space. Is this really in the viewport layer? Layout. So your viewport should be in the viewport layer, right? So everything that is viewport, viewport. It's not going to change anything inside the viewport into that new layer. It's just changing this object viewport into the viewport layer. That way, we have it set up, if you recall, that we're not going to be able to print, or they will not be visible when it's printed. Okay. So once we have set this up, you can go ahead and remanipulate your viewport space. You know, this stuff in here I drew just as an example, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Okay. The space is not locked, the viewport is not locked, so I could still change the scale. And for the scale, I think we used 1/2 inch the last time, right? It'll come up. If we use an inch scale, 1 inch, it'll be twice that size. So let's keep this one at 1/2 inch because I think that fits fairly well. And we can manipulate this thing so that it is somewhat close to that space. Once you have the viewport scale set, please remember to lock it. Okay, so once you lock it, once you select the viewport and highlight the lock, then you will no longer be able to zoom in and out. Where the viewport is not locked, if you go into the viewport, you will change or manipulate its placement or its scale. Okay. So let's try centering this object right into the middle of our paper. Remember, we drew this outer frame right there to represent our 11 by 17 piece of paper, right? So we could use this object to say, if I draw a line from the midpoint, perpendicular, to get a perpendicular line, remember F8 is going to turn the ortho on. Or you could get to this tab right here that'll keep everything orthogonally. Okay, so if I do that, right, I could move my object. So if I say move, select the object, enter, I can select stuff that's inside the viewport. So the midpoint, MID, enter. I'm going to select the midpoint of my wall there and then get it to the perpendicular, PER, PERP, sorry, perpendicular to that line that I just drew, and now this object is centered, or it's in the halfway point of the sheet. Okay, same thing. If I could just draw a bunch of guidelines and figure out the center spot, but let's leave this at there right now. So I could get rid of the guideline, and there we go. Okay, so just for the heck of it, I am going to center this thing in the middle, halfway up and down too. So if I draw a line, L, if I draw a line from the midpoint, and then say move, select that object from the midpoint, I could always, if I'm going to use a lot of midpoint, I can always click on the ortho, not the ortho, the snap, and select the midpoint if I wanted to. As a general rule, like I said, try to keep as much of the O snaps off because you'll be selecting almost everything at that point. So there we go, and then perpendicular, PERP. So if you type it in, it's only going to select that object snap, perpendicular, and there it is. So now my object is pretty much right in the center of the sheet. Okay.